We're Hassani and Danielle Pettiford, and we're a real couple with real problems who almost called it quits.
I was very frustrated. I became very disconnected, very jaded and cold.
We have 4 children, going on 20 years of marriage, and we practice what we preach.
Our mission, to change the way couples relate to one another and teach them the skills needed to improve the quality of their relationships. This is the Couples Academy Show.
Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Couples Academy Show. My name is Hassani, and I have these 2 powerhouses on with me this morning. I have Roland Bradley. I have Roderick Ford. Welcome to the show, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Thank you. Morning.
All right. Now, we're excited. You haven't seen me over the last few days because we have just completed our last chance weekend, and immediately after that, I dove into a private marriage intensive. So, I'm glad that the team was able to come in here and give you some powerful word. But I want to start off with a testimonial because I'm excited about the transformation that we experienced this weekend. I tell you, it's an amazing thing. And when couples come here, they're just in a completely different state and they leave completely transformed. If you knew the backstories of these couples' relationships, you would be like, wow. And they made it through that. And to see the evidence of it today. So check this testimonial out, and then we'll jump in to today's conversation.
Hi, we are Ryan and Marcy Fowler. We're from Zeeland, Holland, Michigan. We also are from Florida. What we got out of this weekend what I personally got out of this weekend was absolutely amazing. I'm going to say probably the best 3 days we have ever spent together, probably 3 of the toughest days, and 3 of the most productive days that we have ever had. Probably the best investment we have ever made in each other, personally and together as a couple.
Yeah, it was a crapshoot. We didn't know what we were getting ourselves into. We decided to take the leap of faith that this would change our lives. We, even on the way here, we're like, we have no idea what's going to happen, and it's mind-blowing how changing this weekend was. It was incredibly difficult, but incredibly awesome, and no pain, no gain. I couldn't recommend it more to any couple that needs to be affirmed and to know where they're going. And our last name is going to live forever.
Absolutely.
I tell you, man, stories like that are touching. You had a chance to meet them, Roland.
I did. They came in broken and left. I mean, you can see fully whole again and ready for life. They traveled a long way, but they pressed their way through. They made it, and they got the best out of what they needed.
They certainly have. All right, guys, we're in our theme for the month, the Separation and Divorce series. We're really taking our time to unpack this because it is such a mental stronghold in people's minds in terms of thinking that divorce is the only option. We like to refer to it as the last or final option, but certainly not the only option. There's so many other options that you can take beyond that. And so we were talking about the 7 reasons not to get a divorce on yesterday. And we want to pick up in that conversation today by diving in deep. Now, if you were not on the show, if you weren't present, the first point was, if all you do is fight, right? Because there's so many couples who are engaged in constant battle every single day, and how to pivot and shift from that in another direction. And then if you don't connect anymore, and I think that's one of the biggest issues that most people have, they lost their connection. There is a disconnect. That level of intimacy that they once had is officially gone, and they believe once it's gone forever. There is no restoring it. But then we talked about what you need to do to reconnect. And so then it was, if you don't communicate, right? Because that's one of the things that completely shuts down is communication. Now, did you guys go deep into communication? Did you unpack that in a thorough way?
We did. And we have to understand that communication is not just the words that are coming out of your mouth. You have to be able to listen to what the person is saying, to fully understand what's going on, to have a better concept of talking. So yeah, we really did that.
Okay, so we're about to go into number 4, and the fourth one is if you aren't interested in the same things. But before we do that, we're going to go to a quick commercial break, so stay tuned, and we're going to dive into today's content. Be right back.
Welcome to the Couples Academy app. The Couples Academy app is your go-to hub for how to do marriage right. Get started with our app today by perusing our amazing features that conveniently allow you to connect. This app is packed with powerful content and resources to help you grow and stay connected. With this app, you can watch our messages, find marriage resources, watch, listen, and read the real-life stories of restored couples, sign up for events, read articles and blog posts, stay up to date with push notifications, share your favorite messages via Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, or email, and download messages for offline listening. For more information about the Couples Academy app, go to couplesacademy.org.
All right, guys, we're back. You're watching the Couples Academy show. We're talking about the 7 reasons not to divorce. Before we jump back in, are you in that place? Have you considered divorce? Is that where you find yourself, where you need to tune in and to listen to these nuggets so that you can make a pivot in your mentality and ultimately in your marriage? So, Roland, there was a little bit of echo in your voice. If that continues, I'll take over. But lead us in the steps. You're muted. You're muted. Okay, I think there are technicalities, there's problems. So let's go into it. If you aren't interested in the same things. Now, interestingly enough, when you were dating, there was a shared commonality. You did things together. You went places together. You found out what you liked. It's like when we talk about the 4 seasons of a successful relationship, you have the dating season, committed courtship, engagement, and marriage. And in the committed courtship season, that is the getting to know you phase. That is the phase where you begin to discover what your shared interests are, your shared likes, things that you do together that bring about a sense of togetherness. What happens over the course of time, people outgrow each other, they outgrow the relationship, they go in their separate paths. I've got my friends, you've got yours. I've got my interests, you've got yours. And it seems as though we no longer have anything in common. We're just not interested in the same things. I like sports, you don't. You like ratchet reality, I don't. We can't coexist in the same household. And so I think it's important to figure out, what was it like in the very beginning? Before there was this split, before there was this disconnect, sometimes you had to remember how it was in the beginning and go back to that space to find areas of commonality. Or maybe if you were married 10, 20 years ago and you're a new you don't do the same things, you don't like the same things, have a work day where you have these sensible conversations with your spouse and figure out not what you disagree about and not where you're not in alignment, but what is the commonality. You know, the Bible says, can two walk together unless they be in agreement? So what can we at least agree on? Whatever that is, that can be how we begin to rebuild a foundation and then grow from there. What are your thoughts on that, Roderick?
Well, and sometimes the situation is there's outside distractions. There's things that have taken us away from the focus on the relationship. That focus or lack of it will cause us to start thinking that things are different, or that the same things that brought us together no longer can bring us together, because again, there's outside distractions that we're focusing on.
Yeah, and I think those distractions oftentimes lead to the demise of a relationship. I remember a pastor of mine years ago, she made a powerful statement that stuck with me. She said, distractions ultimately lead to destruction. And so you have to stay on course and make sure you're going in a particular direction. Roland, is your mic working? You want to weigh in on this?
Yes, I think I'm fine now. No, I'm not. But the problem, one. I'm sorry, Jim. We're having difficulties on my end.
All right, let's just jump to the next one. We're talking about children, right? The importance of children, and if you're only together for the kids. Now, this is really common. This is oftentimes what we hear. I'm just staying together for the kids. When you find yourself in that situation, how do you navigate through that?
Well, just staying for the kids is not always a bad thing, but it can't be the only thing or the only reason for the marriage to stay intact. So let's go back to the communication. You know, if we're talking about the core, the communication, and we believe that I'm only there for the kids, then we need to have a deep dive conversation. We need to understand the why. We need to understand, has something happened? We need to understand, has there been a shift in one of us? We also need to identify, when did this happen? Is this something that just sprung on us? Or is it something that has been building for a while? So all those things play a very important factor versus just saying, I'm only here for the kids.
Absolutely. And listen, to your point, that should be a reason, because when you have no other reason to stay in the marriage, but you feel bound and tied into it because you have kids, I say, well, thank God for the kids,
Yes.
because at least it gives us enough space and time to begin to build other reasons, right, and other motivations into why we should ultimately stay together. So I think that's an excellent point in terms of what we need to do. Let's go to the next one, and it is, many people consider divorce because, you know what, they just want to be free, right? I just want my freedom, because somehow in the relationship, they feel bound, they feel tied down, they feel like they don't have the ability to live life because they have a spouse and they have these children and all these responsibilities. And so what I have found is that oftentimes spouses have felt like they've lost their sense of self. They've lost their identity. They've lost their voice. Everything is what you want to do. Every date is what you plan. Every vacation is your choice. I just don't have my own independence, autonomy, and freedom in this relationship. And that is a sign of an unhealthy relationship. Mm-hmm. You know, of course, when you two get married, you become one, and you take on an identity as a couple. But yet and still, there is still your own individuality and self-expression, because that's who God created you to be. So even though the scripture says when two come together in a covenant marriage, there must be a death, the death is not to your personality and your uniqueness. The death is to the life you used to live. Like, I'm no longer living a single life because I'm now entering into a married, covenant, coupled relationship life. But I need to expand. I need to grow. I need to develop into the best version of myself. And as I become my best self, I add or complement the relationship. And I think that's where things are lost. And so there's many couples who complain, you know what, you're so bossy, you're so controlling. I don't have any freedom, to spend my own money or to go out with my friends or to make my own decisions. And if you find yourself in that place, it's time for a redirect to get things back on track. Roland, what are your thoughts on that?
We have to learn to create safe spaces for one another. And as long as we have safe spaces for one another, we can begin to communicate in a more effective way. And you won't feel that control or bow down from your spouse because you have the ability to respect one another, to learn from one another, and to be able to appreciate one another. But what happens is we get so caught up in life, we get so caught up in the day-to-day activities of life that we find ourselves just overlapping one another. And we can't allow that to happen because now you feel smothered, or you feel like you don't have any a leash on you in a sense. And so we have to be able to separate the two so that way you can have that freedom that you need to still be able to live your best life.
Very true. Let's go to a couple points. Tamika Fletcher says, only staying for the kids can be destructive to the kids. Kids see more than you think. Things you think you're hiding from them, trust me, they can feel the vibe change in the household. Now, that is a fact. And this is why we say that you have to do your best to protect your children from your marriage. And I think oftentimes so many people make the mistake of bringing them into the relationship and allowing them to see too much and even to weigh in on what's going on. And now, sometimes some immature parents will speak negatively about their spouse, and now the child is forced to make a decision whose side they're going to be on. And it's destructive to that child because you're teaching and training that child how to function as an adult because they mirror what has been modeled for them. So if all they see is drama and trauma and destruction, trust and believe it will have a tremendous impact. And so, yes, I agree, staying just for the kids can be damaging. But if that's the only thing that you're holding on to at that time, let's get into some deep dive therapy. Let's begin to work things out so that you know how to function, at least in their presence. Yes. And this is why I remember when Daniel and I would get into certain deep conversations, we made sure that we got in the car and took a drive. Yes. We made sure that we got outside the house and went on a walk and talk because some of those conversations could get heated and we didn't want to expose them to that. I mean, what are your thoughts on that with your children?
Well, there's conversations that should be adult-only conversations. I know that may sound old school, but some old school things should be brought into the new school. There's conversations that there's a certain maturity level that needs to be in place. Not to mention, a kid wants to feel that love from both parents. They don't want to choose sides. They don't want to pit one against the other, and they definitely don't want to be a pawn. However, like you said earlier, Sonny, if the kids are the only reason why I'm staying, that's great because that gives us something to build on. That gives us an example of what love can look like because the love between a parent and a child is undeniable. But it also allows, sometimes it allows that couple to refocus and not only think about the issues and the problems, but also think about the good times and the good things, and they can see the fruits of their labor.
Yeah, very true. Anna Marshall says, "Good morning, everyone from Philly. I've been feeling this. We're so thankful for you, Hassani, and for Jewel, and for her husband. We're in therapy." Well, awesome. Good to know that. I love when couples who are taking advantage of the services here come on and share their experiences because it'll help encourage others. Tiffany says, "It does take a lot of patience for one another. I've developed a limited level of patience for him because he has none with me. The divorce has been his idea, but he's dragging his feet." So let's pause on that because oftentimes, and this is why we say it's not over till it's over. I can't tell you how many times people are in panic over the threat of the divorce. And then one spouse files papers or begins the process but may not complete the process, but they're still speaking divorce, holding it over one's head. but they don't move. And so I say oftentimes, you can't pay attention to what a person says. You have to pay attention to what they do. Because if someone really wants a divorce, there's nothing you can do to stop that person, if that's what they know that they're going to do. And so if there is a hesitation or a pause, that means that there's still hope to turn things around. I have known people who have had dates on the calendar and have just been a few days away from the termination of their marriage, and they called an emergency session with us to see if there was any hope left. So when we say it's not over till it's over, that's exactly what we mean. Listen, guys, you're watching the Couples Academy Show. We're going to go to a quick break. Stay tuned, and we'll come back with some other points.
Couples Academy is committed to serving couples around the world by reaching beyond cultural lines and language barriers. We are proud to announce that we now serve the Spanish-speaking community. So whether you're here in the United States or abroad, Couples Academy has a place for you.
Couples Academy se compromete a servir parejas de todo el mundo, superando las fronteras culturales y las barreras del idioma. Ahora, estamos orgullosos de anunciar que servimos a la comunidad de habla hispana. Entonces, ya sea que estés aquí en los Estados Unidos o en el extranjero, Couples Academy está aquí para servirle.
All right, guys, we're back. You're watching the Couples Academy Show. What a day it is today. The enemy is a liar. He's under our feet. All these technicalities, I rebuke it. All right. So anyway, we're on our last point. We're talking about what if the intimacy is dead? Now, when you first formed this relationship, there was a high level of intensified emotions. There was a strong connection. Over the course of time, situations, circumstances, misunderstandings, setbacks, disappointments really began to cause the level of connection to become more and more disconnected. So intimacy became a thing of the past. And so some believe once the intimacy is gone, it is gone forever. But I don't believe that's true. There's ways that you can reignite and restore the intimacy to get it back to where it once was, or to bring it to a place that it's never been. So, Roderick, how important is intimacy, and what can couples begin to do to shift things in the right direction?
Well, son, ironically, when you're talking about intimacy, it starts with communication. It starts with being vulnerable. It starts with being intentional. It starts with being transparent. That's where that intimacy really comes from. It doesn't always mean in the bedroom. It doesn't always mean sexual. It starts with a conversation. It starts with an openness that both parties have to come in with. One party can't be open and the other party is shut down or reserved. They have to have those tough conversations. They have to have a safe environment to have that conversation. And they have to be willing to listen, not be defensive, and take it personal, but not take it personal in a negative way. That's how the intimacy is going to come back. And having those conversations, that openness, seeing one another in that honeymoon eye, or seeing one another in that new eye, which it should, light that fire of attraction back up, which should lead to more and more intimacy, more and more conversation, more and more emotional needs being met, and ultimately, more and more sexual intimacy.
Let me go to this comment right here. Shanae, if I'm saying that correctly, she says, would be nice to hear marriage testimonials from our coaches and how they made it through the battles. I think that's a great question. How did you make it through? How did you overcome? What was your process of recovery that took you from where you were to where you are?
My process of recovery was first and foremost being truthful and transparent and vulnerable to myself, taking responsibility, being accountable, and being willing to change and being willing to learn something new. And then I had to forget everything that I've done and learned in the past, being open and honest to my wife, and focus on me instead of trying to do things that I thought she needed for recovery. By me focusing on myself, not in a selfish way, but me focusing on being the best version of myself, committed to change, committed to showing up differently, committed to learning how to love my spouse, how to honor her, how to respect her, how to meet her emotional needs. That was what really put us on the road to recovery. And then, of course, my wife had to be willing to change, be willing to see me differently, and be willing to recommit herself to the future of what our marriage could be.
Roland.
So for me, I definitely had to change my mindset. The mindset was everything. And when I put away that bad behavior mindset and rededicated myself to myself and let my old self die, I was committed to marriage. I was committed to what I wanted our lives to look like and put in the work. I was very intentional on how I handled my wife, how I handled our situation in times past. And I definitely wanted to make sure that I presented myself in a new way to give myself a chance to show up as a better version of myself, so that our marriage can show up as a better version of ourselves, and really dedicating myself to understanding who I am and the mistakes that I made, and make sure that I recommit myself not to do them again. So it's daily work for sure, because that old man has to die every single day in order for the new man to continue to rise up.
So there you have it, guys. I think Roderick, Roland, if I think about Jewel and Gonzalez, if I think about April and Donald, if I think about Danielle and myself, if I think about Lakeisha, Walter and Charmaine, all of us have, as practitioners, have been in a space where our marriage has been threatened. We were on the verge of divorce, but we made a decision that we were going to do something inherently different. There was a pivot. And so we're not just giving you textbook answers that sound good. We're talking to you about what we ourselves have been able to overcome. And if we can do it, you can do it. Now, if you choose to go down that path, that's a decision that you're going to own. But I need to tell you that you don't have to do that. There is another way. And if you just continue to tune in and listen to the advice and the guidance and the counsel that we give you, it can help change your life, your relationship, and save you so much continual pain. Because if you believe, because I heard what you said, sis, you said, I need to make a decision for my own happiness. It wasn't, yeah, there it is. You said, I have to make decisions for my happiness. All I know is that there's so many people who get divorced who still are unhappy. That pain continues, and it's a double pain, a triple pain, and there's a high cost associated with that. So before being led by your feelings and emotions, do something different, okay? Watching this show on a daily basis is step one, but step two is reaching out to us for guidance so that we can navigate you through a process. Anyway, guys, love you very much. Hope you got something out of today. We'll continue the conversation tomorrow. Until then, have a great day.